Uh, Now I'd like to, introduce the second speaker of the day. She is Dr. Swayam Prabha Satapathy. She has several years of teaching experience in various capacities. Presently, she is working as an associate professor in communication skills, Shiksha O Anusandhan University in the Department of Humanities. Dr. Satapathy is also a behavioral competence developer and NLP. She has been awarded with Siksha Ratan Puraskar, Teachers Excellence Award, and Best Academician Award, Special Award from Indian Institution of Industrial Engineering Research Excellence Award. She has also attended, presented papers, given keynote addresses, and chaired sessions in many national as well as international conferences. And she has delivered as a research person and conducted FGPs in various universities. Her research interests are English literature, language and communication, and cultural studies. So, ma'am, today I welcome you and request to start your session on the topic of paradigm shifts in language learning in the era of digitization. Ma'am, over
So,
to you.
yes, thank you so much, Ms. Jayashree, so for a wonderful introduction. And on the onset, I would also like to thank the organizers, that is Department of English, Manav Rachna Research International Institute of Research and Studies, Faridabad, and Cape Cameron Trust, and Lavender Literary Club, all associates with the Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Technology. Well, thank you so much for giving this opportunity. And, as the topic of this faculty development program goes, as mastering the craft of teaching. So that takes a lot of my interest because, teaching is something which has, as I understand from my years of experience, that it doesn't have any kind of a model that we can craft and work upon it, because as very rightly the previous speaker said, that it is always need based. So each time with the changing environment and the changing needs of the learners, so we have to adapt to different kind of teaching learning methodologies. Well, as we talk of digitalization, and this is like, I would just start in a lighter note, because all these days I must say that all of you must have had a very grueling sessions. So a lighter respite to this kind of sessions would always give some kind of a motivation to listen to a lot of things that which has makes a lot of sense, right? So you see there, as we talk about digitalization, so there is a kind of a joke, but but it has a lot of implication. You see, there is a caller who talks to a Pizza Hut. He's ordering, and that would be probably the way how we order in the coming years. That is, the caller says that is this the Pizza Hut? The Google answers that no, sir, it's Google Pizza. So the caller says, I must have dialed the wrong number, sorry. So Google says, no, sir, Google brought Pizza Hut last month. So the caller says, okay, I would like to order a pizza. And the Google again answers, do you want your usual, sir? So my usual, you know me. So the Google says, according to our caller ID data sheet, the last 12 times you called, you ordered an extra large pizza with 3 cheeses, sausages, pepperoni, mushrooms, and meatballs on a thick crust. So caller says, super, that's what I will have. So again, the Google answers, so may I suggest that this time you order a pizza with ricotta, arugula, sun-dried tomatoes, and olives on a whole wheat gluten-free thin crust? Caller says, what? I don't want a vegetarian pizza. So the Google answers, your cholesterol is not good, sir. The caller is amazed. How the hell do you know that? So Google says, well, we cross-referenced your home phone number with the medical records, and we have the result of your blood test for the last 7 years. So the caller was again shocked. Okay, but I do not want your rotten vegetarian pizza. I already take medication for my cholesterol. The Google answers, excuse me, sir, but you have not taken your medication regularly according to our database. You purchased only a box of 30 cholesterol tablets once a Laird's pharmacy 4 months ago. The caller says that I bought more from another pharmacy. Google says that doesn't show on your credit card statement. So the caller says I paid it on cash. So Google answers that, but you did not withdraw enough cash according to your bank statement. So, and there is a lot of conversations going on, and everything the Google knows about the caller. And finally, the caller says that enough. Already, I'm sick to death of Google, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, and all others. I'm going to an island without the internet, TV, where there is no phone service and no one to watch me or spy on me. And to the surprise, Google answers, I understand, sir, but you need to renew your passport first. It expired 6 weeks ago. So this is how is a warm welcome to the future that we are looking forward in the digital era. So with having said that, and in a lighter note, so now we come on to the, the paradigm shifts that, we are looking forward in the teaching learning process. So as, we are mastering the craft of teaching, which is not a kind of a thing which can be honed at every point of time. There needs a conscious efforts in order to, acclimatize ourselves, because, as I'm a language teacher, so teaching language in through a digital media is actually a very difficult aspect, of course. If I say this at present, so I would be quite contradicting to the present state, because last 2 years we have been digitally taking the classes, having conferences and FDPs, and to my surprise, I could see some of the people who are, they are attending driving. So how much we have, become and used to this multitasking things. So let me just share my slides out here so that we can explore a little more about it, because as I understand, this paradigm shifts are basically a kind of a thing that which is very much necessary for us, and we have seen all through the times that there is a kind of an intervention, sometimes a kind of a lot of things that which is changing every day. Okay, so this is how we are going to do. So if, is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so this is my topic of discussion today, that is paradigm shifts in language learning in the digital era. So there is always, a teacher's autonomy, as I would say, in order to, bring yourselves up in order to be cater to the needs of the students, because we as academicians, our main focus is in the orientation of the students, and the progress of the students, directly or indirectly, it depends on the instructors. So whenever we are trying to, talk about communicative strategies in order to build a language understanding, so it is always through some kind of a, when I say use the word term strategies, now again, this is something very much essential, because each time, according to the needs, according to the the present conditions and context, we have to teach, right? So let us see what there are. Of course, as we have understood, there's a lot of shifts that has been taking place. So my objectives for this session is the teacher's role and basic changes in the pedagogy, digital transformation, teachers' apprehension, and students' adaptability. So the next thing we would do is that what is the teacher's role? Teachers, they are, though I would say to some extent, a neglected part of the society in India, of course, in the Indian context. But at the same time, they play a very pivotal role in bringing up the education in, the students and building up of a nation. So in this digital era, teacher's role has shifted from mere preacher to the manager of students, social and emotions behaviors, mentor for their learning and overall development as a balanced citizen. So to take care of this learning capacities in digital environment, so it has been an Herculean task. So we do help, it's a teacher's role which help to manage to make the optimum use of e-resources. So he has to address to social and emotional issues that affect learners' learning and be ready to make changes when required. So isn't that true? Because though there has been a lot of shifting in responsibilities, shifting of models, shifting of roles. So, but apart from that, it has always been a challenge for individuals and teachers in particular, in order to bring up and to bring and to accept this transformation and to build in the students' interest in accepting this transformation. And particularly when we talk about language teachers, because language, something, it has, there is a lot of difference between the language acquired and language applied. So there is a vast gap, there is a wide gap, because the language acquired is always the mother tongue and the language that we are comfortable with. But the language which we have to apply is always a language which is not in our comfort zone. And as we are attending to more into communicative studies, so definitely we are teaching more in the language English, which is again a kind of, I would say, a kind of a foreign language, but at the same time it is taken as the first language, as these days people are so much accommodative and used to this, and in order to place ourselves globally, we need a common medium. So indeed, the teachers do play a very important role at in order to make the optimum use of e-resources and motivate the students in order to use that. Now, there are certain basic changes. A teacher working in higher education institute, I think many of you who are working may also relate with this kind of a thing, that they have to understand the difference between learning about and learning to be, and implement the latter for the effective learning outcome among the learners. So, learning about is always something that which is already there. But as I said, language teachers do not always have something to teach which is already there, because there is always an upcoming challenge. So what is to be, or what is the next challenge which the language teachers face, is always almost unknown to the, because we have a veracity in the students' acceptability, a students motivations, and as well as how do we implement this is always a challenge. And proper involvement of the learner ought to be ensured in the discipline which is meant learning to be. That is, if a learner is enrolled teaching teacher education program, he should have direct exposure of teaching skills. So that the sharing of empathy is something which is the need of the hour, because we have to kind of develop, because we have to acclimatize ourselves into this kind of a digitalization which has brought a transformation in every individual's lives. And teaching language through the digital media, though we would not be let back, or would be outcasted by not adapting to this kind of things, but at the same time it becomes a kind of a difficult task on the part of language teachers, that how do we implement this. Now, the digital periphery can be accommodating to learner for the content exploration to work out lessons in a digital form, and teachers' role from technical to teaching point will be crucial. So I think, again, many of you will agree with this, because, when it comes to the technical knowledge, so this is something, the language teachers are sometimes not updated with. Or, of course, as of now, we cannot say that, because we are the adaptability is so much into the language teachers that we have also been at par with the other technical, fraternity, and that is why we have everything that which is very much interdisciplinary, or we can say multidisciplinary. So language teachers have to make it available, support structures and systems for them to develop skills like interactive learning, collaborative learning, and independent learning among the students. So the teacher's role expands to nurture critical thinking abilities. So when we, as language teachers, work with the students or impart education to students, or teach, this language abilities, because this is a kind of a common medium which serves as a glue between individuals and, and corporates. So ultimately, what are we aiming at in this present education system is we are trying to bring a kind of a change, though in through digitalization. That is, how do people accept this AI? How do these people get into the Internet of Things? Because, having just a theoretical knowledge doesn't suffice until and unless you apply. So there has to be a common medium which will connect people to that, and that is through the language studies, and that comes through the importance of language studies. So there is a digital transformation, like, we have industrial revolutions. So the first industrial revolution, steam power, was disruptive technology that changed the world. So every industrial revolution to some extent has is disruptive. And so also the subsequent industrial revolutions that came, that in the second it was the assembly line, in the third it was the computer, and today the fourth revolution is digital. So when we talk of this digitalization, so there is a lot of transformation, like intelligent digital technologies like AI and machine learning, Internet of Things, networks, advanced analytics, and robotics have the power to reinvent how we work and do business, and how companies engage with their customers and the world. And presently, it has extended and has successfully engulfed into language learning abilities too. So when we are talking of all this, this digital technologies, as I was saying about AI, machine learning, Internet of Things. So how do we connect? Because, we have to relate to, our customers. And how do the companies engage with their customers and the world? So there comes a close, a kind of a communion between the language learning abilities and the transformation that which is going on. So then, can we spare a moment and think, as John Dewey rightly says, that if we teach today as we taught yesterday, then we rob our children of tomorrow. So that when we are coming to such a kind of a paradoxical state, that when we are not very much ready with, to accept the ever-changing or the fast-changing digital mode, but at the same time, can we ever teach our children like with the same conventional mode of our teaching? So is it important to integrate technology into the language classroom? And so is there an explanation of why or why not? So sure enough, all of us would agree at this point of time that nevertheless we have with the digital transformations, we have also transformed ourselves and have become more digitally able in order to connect with our students. And as we understand that the role of ICT is it is as a new normal. So ICT pervades in all aspects, starting from communication, household, marketing, business, corporates, education, language acquisition. So here, this thing that what do teachers believe to be their role in the future? Now, their relationship between visitors and residents. So, as teachers, they are have a kind of a conventional mindset. So, I take them that they are visitors in this digital era, whereas we are dealing with the residents. The students are quite updated with the technology. Now, when we are trying to bridge the gap between, by intervening into the resident area, so that comes as a challenge to us, and the teachers do have a very important role to play. Now, how do you feel about teaching to the 21st century learner? That's a very pertinent question that all of us, would think at some point of time, that we feel sometimes out of place about how to get into this learning abilities. So technology enhances every aspect of our lives and in education, and areas of student success, the area resonates the most is the influence of technology. Okay. So, in this digital age, a period in human history characterized by a shift from industrial production to information and computerization, changing significantly business and social interactions. So, when we talk about social interactions, I think it would not be wrong on my part to, discuss about the various platforms that we access these days. So sometimes, though we talk about digital transformations, we talk about, but at the same time, it has its all pros and cons as well. So say, for example, when we access Facebook, okay, so all of us are, we are very much language enabled, and very much we take pride in understanding the language. So how many of us, and when we see our students, so they put a like at everything where they have not to put a like. Say, for example, there is a post of someone's death, and they have shared the death of somebody, and somebody, so in order to just support the view, they put a like. Now, how insensible it is. So are we going in the right direction? Can we bring about a change in the mindset of the people? That is, how do we use the digital world in a right perspective? Because that is some of the major challenges. We might develop various models, we might develop various kinds of, we can bring about a metamorphosis in the digital era, but at the same time, what about the basics? We are forgetting the roots, because language learning is not only about adapting a language, but also comprehending its use, because that's how we are going to deal with. So there is too much of information, and for anyone to handle, and that information becomes obsolete also very quickly. As we can see, the transformation in words use. So that's very true. You see, as how many of us have adapted to the use of language as ASAP, and laugh out loud, we say lol. So this is something which is not very much, we were not very much adaptable to. But with the change of times, we have adapted to these kind of language transformations as well. So sometimes it is for the good, sometimes it isn't for the good. So we use emojis instead of using our emotions. So emojis can compensate with the emotional quotient. So how much, of course, that's a question to be debated, that how much it is a kind of a positive adaptability that we do. Of course, when we have nothing much to get along with, we have to positively adapt to these kind of transformations. Now, access to instant transformation information has become an essential part of our personal and professional lives. So this also means that for providing deeper learning to students, teacher must be transformed and adapted to modern times. Now, this goes without saying, when during this pandemic, so I think all of us had a lot of learning curves in our adaptability skills, and I think even if nothing has changed, but we have become a lot of have honed this skill in us of being adaptable. Now, but what exactly is the digital era? That is the current time frame in history where the use of digital sources has become prevalent and commonly used throughout the world. Most of our activities depend on technological information and communication, from social activities to business to politics, and of course, the most important aspect of learning. So in this current times, so if we compare, ourselves or our teaching learning process with the ancient times, so there has been a lot of shift in understanding of the language, or in understanding of the learning process. And, in the technological information and the communication strategies have changed drastically, because now we talk of the new design thinking. Now, what is this new design thinking? Basically, when we have already stepped into the fourth industrial revolution, so the new design thinking is a kind of an aspect which we have to implement, which includes our learning abilities in communicating better, in understanding of language better, in comprehending the language, in implementing the language, and bridging the gap between language acquisition and language application. So now, learning is the relatively permanent change in a person's knowledge or behavior due to experience. Now, how do we bring in technology into it? Because each day we have a sort of a different kind of a learning. Okay, and our knowledge, whatever we understand, our whatever the developments that are going on, it has some kind of an impact on our behavior, and which we understand more because of our experience. So acquiring knowledge and skills and having them readily available from memory, so you can make sense of future problems and opportunities. So as I said, there could be there could be some kind of apprehensions in our minds when we are trying to talk about digital learning, because it's not very much encouraging though, but at the same time, because it is a more of a language learning is more of a humanitarian skill. But nevertheless, as very we have to be at par with the curriculum, we have to be at par with the trends. So that is why the digital learning has come into place. And digital learning refers to the process of learning with the help of digital content, platforms, or facilitators. So the evolve of learning increases the use of digital components more and more as more content becomes available. So of course, this is again one positive aspect, because there is so much of content available that anybody can have access to the learning process. So pedagogy has also evolved. Teachers use digital resources as an integral part of teaching, and many students expand their ideas with them. So, say for example, who had thought of getting ourselves more adapted to these kind of digital use of digitalization in every respect. Say for example, as simple as shopping. So I think many of us, or most of us, would not be going to shop, offline. So leave about the present situation of pandemic, because we are so used to of the online shopping. So slowly and gradually, we have adapted ourselves into this digital learning, uh, ways. Now there is an infinite content, as we find out in our in the internet, and the amount of content is on the internet is huge, and the access is also immediate. So logically, the internet has become one of the main, if not the main, source of information for us human beings. So also the learning of the language, because internet teaches us the language use more than what we as language teachers teach the students. Because supposing we are trying to adapt to the conventional mode of teaching methodology, so certainly we would have a handful of students attending our classes. So the classrooms would go vacant. But at the same time, when we have from quite some time, we have been adapting to the smart classes, and we have been adapting to the digital mode of learning. We have communication labs, and the way we prompt our students in order to develop the four skills of listening, reading, writing, and uh, so all this speaking, so all these skills are more adaptable. And we also have many of the MOOC courses, so which also adds up to this kind of learning abilities, as we have many of them as Udemy, where we have personality development courses, and though they have to pay a higher price, but nevertheless that suits that they are in a comfort zone to understand, right? Impact on language learning. So living in a land of plurality of language. So we as Indians we live in a land of a place we live in a land where there is plurality of language, and there is a wide gap between acceptability and adaptability. So how do we accept this change? How do we accept the change of learning a language is something a major challenge, which which all of us must have faced at some point of time. And at the same time, adaptability. So even if you accept, how do you adapt to that? Because we have a lot of mother tongue influence. And so bridging this gap is again a major challenge among all of us. Now, English being the communicative language, so how do we bridge this gap? So there could be various methodologies which we have been doing, and we cannot have any absolute terms when we are trying to build language learning, because we cannot frame models. We can just have the permutations and combinations as to how what permutation will work, and to what set of students. because we have always a focus on a target students. So definitely, so this kind of an acceptability and adaptability has always taken a back step, when we are trying to build in this language abilities in students, because they don't want to come out of their comfort zones. So there is another issue that one has to align to that. That is, there is to be an alignment in order to align with the digital era. So language has acclimatized itself, making it convenient to use. Because as I said, when we use in the text messages, when we text messages, so how often we, even as language teachers, have adapted to the short forms, and we take it as a kind of a textual, information. We talk about new words that has come up to. The pronunciation skills have also changed. When we use all these, platforms of Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and many such social platforms, where we are trying to align the language with the need of the hour. And this kind of a skill is always ever evolving. We cannot have a kind of a statutory format that this is how we can develop a language skills in students. So we have to always experiment on that. And we have to also, at the same time, it is a major challenge for the teachers to always, keep on, brushing their minds in order to what will best suit the students' minds, right? So then correct handling of the digital information, of course, is again something which, we have been, it has been a very important aspect, because as we have seen over this presentation, that learning requires disposition to acquire new knowledge or skills that can be useful in the future. And with the recent technologies, this has been made a lot easier. So that is why, so the correct handling is something which we have to, learn to, because though we are, we say that we have transformed ourselves, there is a kind of a, we are we are going global, so we have to, present ourselves in a global platform. So this digital e-resources are to be exhaustive, and we have to make the optimal use. But at the same time, if we are not able to handle it correctly, then where do we stand? So therefore, in conclusion, I would say that the digital sources are essential for any type of learning nowadays, and that immense amount of instant uh, online content allows us to get significant information and or learning in just a matter of seconds. So, and keep that for the rest of our lives. And that is something we human beings must use correctly. So the takeaways from my presentation is, that is, the paradigm shifts in language learning has moved from acquisition alone to application oriented. The responsibility of facilitators has a major contribution, and the 3 A's that I would suggest that all of us as language teachers have to adapt is, that is, adaptability, alertness, and alignment. So these 3 things, because we cannot, as language teachers particularly, I'm specifying this to the language teachers, because we cannot always have a kind of a set rule that this is how we have to go, a certain a kind of a norm or a regulation that this is how we can teach, or this is how we can bring in the language developments. So sometimes there has to be a win-win situation. Sometimes we have to compromise on certain language adaptabilities, and we have to also understand our students' need and the context. So the future is not something we enter. The future is something that we create. So thank you so much, and have a great evening. So I would like, if people have any questions, can ask me.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this wonderful session. And we have a question from Ms. Devi. that in this digital time, we could see short span attention among youths and less vocabulary use as substituted by emojis, abbreviated words, spellings, less verbal communication, which means poor human relationships. Students becoming more lethargic because everything is easily accessible. So, how do we overcome this? How do we bridge this gap between the generations that we are, having?
Absolutely, a very good question, because nevertheless, each of the teachers, particularly again, I would specify language teachers, always have to face this kind of a challenge. So what I would suggest is, we have to always have a kind of a, we should be prepared. That is, we should be always be ready to motivate. Now, how does this motivation comes? There is a different kind of your the pedagogical approaches should be different, because you see, as I said, that we are in this digitalization era, and so when we are approaching the students through their interest. Now, say for example, when we start teaching them, or we take up an aspect of their in mobile services, so how interesting that becomes. Or but at the same time, if we take a conventional method of teaching, so how difficult it becomes. And of course, yes, that lethargy is again a kind of a thing which is can be avoided if they have that interest. That is a major challenge, because developing an interest on a subject which they feel that is not their own, so that becomes a difficult aspect, but nevertheless not impossible, because as I said, there's a lot of permutation and combinations that we have to do implement in order to implement this kind of a strategy, because each time communication is a kind of a strategy building, because we have to understand and comprehend the student's mind more than what we have learned. And sometimes our learning, unlearning and relearning comes into process. So I
Okay.
hope that satisfies the answer. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We have another participant, Dr. Jyoti. She wants to ask something. Jyoti, ma'am, can you please unmute yourself and ask a question? Jyoti, ma'am, you've raised your hand. Do you have a question? Ma'am, you're on mute. Jyoti, ma'am, can you hear me? Okay, we'll move on to the next question. We have Meena Kumari, who has asked, loss of face-to-face communication has become a huge challenge these days. Could you please specify certain techniques?
You see, and this particularly for the present scenario, I cannot suggest any kind of a technique of having a face-to-face interaction that would be infecting the people, that I would do something wrong to the people, right? So I cannot make suggestions as of now. But yes, what we can do is, when we are offline, when we are in a without when we are teaching the students in a classroom, so the classroom sessions, the students have to be encouraged to speak up, because we have to focus on the four skills, because we are not looking forward however digital we get into, but we cannot forego the human intelligence part, because artificial intelligence cannot replace human intelligence. So that's what the students need to know. And we as language teachers also should be able to understand and make students understand about that how important is face-to-face conversations. So there could be illustrations, there could be various kinds of, as you see, I always, relate mythology to the present day society also. You see, say for example, take the example of Mahabharata. Gandhari, she was a very, the women characters in Mahabharata were quite, a kind of chivalrous and very charismatic characters. But they all succumbed to the patriarchy. And that was the reason that so many aberrations went. His son did not listen to her. So all these things are possible. And, that same thing relates to us also. because we also fall into some way, we marginalize ourselves, some way we fall into that the student is not listening, so we let go of the fact. So as I said, it's a Herculean task. It cannot be done, cannot be just revised or revisited just in a day. It will take time, but as I said, it's not impossible as such. Thank you.
We have another from Guru Sandhu. The person has asked, ma'am, could you please give suggestions to nurture critical thinking abilities among the students of different levels of learning abilities?
Yes, absolutely. A very good question, because critical thinking is an important aspect, of course. And how do we develop this thinking? So first part, we have to categorize, whenever we research on students. So we have to categorize the students, because each student has a different learning abilities. And as we have a kind of a neuro-linguistic programming also, which helps us in building up, in understanding the students' abilities. So when we build up the student abilities, we tend to know that in which aspect the student understands the information better. So critical thinking is a common ability which every one of us have. Even the students have that. But how do we analyze and make them critical thinkers is something that which we have to do by first analyzing the abilities of the student, that how much he can comprehend. We cannot just we have to categorize there that what kind of students we are dealing with, because there cannot be super intelligent, there cannot be, even there are students, we always get a mixed kind of a students, because sometimes they are below average students also. So now, as I said, it is an Herculean task, because they are very much rigid in understanding this language, in adapting to this language. But once of course the present scenario is giving them a new vent, because when everybody aims at going abroad and settling abroad, working abroad, going for startups, so definitely these abilities they have to build and inculcate. So there has to be a kind of a self motivation also, and a motivation from the students, because from the teachers, because there has to be an environment that which is built. Teachers' autonomy is something which is also to be encouraged, because they should be able to be more judgmental about their students' understanding, rather than implementing on the curriculum and imposing the curriculum on the students. It becomes very difficult when we start imposing something on the students. The rigidity grows from there. Okay, so I think that suffices the questions. Thank you.
Yes, we have another question pouring in. We have a lot of questions today.
That's
It's
good.
from Kanaga Suganya. She has asked that, could you suggest some interesting online learning application or online course to learn English language?
That's great. You have many MOOCs, there are, even from the government of India, there are certain MOOC courses, like SWEM MOOC course, that which is by my name. So I always say, even if I am not there, people will remember me. Well, that's on a lighter note. So there are a lot of MOOC courses. You have Udemy applications. You have, various course era platforms. There are various platforms, you have to, everything Google does it. As I gave the example right at the beginning, you have to just click the button and Google solves your issues. So these are certain platforms which I have come across, like Udemy, Coursera, and for there are again for computer science also there are certain platforms. So many platforms are there. So just Google and you get numerous platforms. But my suggestion would be, the best thing of learning is self-learning. So because when you start practicing, when you listen to a particular kind of a, this is what I do when I go for corporate trainings also, that is you read a certain paragraph and you start, you do not memorize it but summarize it and speak it out. And these days all of us are very used to this earphones. Record your voice, listen to that. So there you come to know your tonality, intonation part. You also practice a lot of speaking. your confidence arises. You can stand in front of the mirror and speak about a particular topic. You can form groups. There are, as I said, the correct use of digitalization is also something which is very important, because people think that if we get enrolled to some of these courses, so nevertheless that would have some kind of an impact. I don't say that, but until and unless there is a self motivation and effort from your side, learning is not possible. So that
Okay,
it
ma'am,
has.
if I may add to you, actually, we also have a lot of online courses which we recommend our students. They are free courses like NPTEL, SWAM, MOOC,
Yes,
and just to let you know, participants, you don't have to pay anything when you do the course. Only time you need to pay is when you want the certificate. So there is always the option of you learning, and if you don't want the certificate, no, that's not an issue. But it's free of course, free of cost. So you can just log into this government platforms, and maybe you can just check what courses you like and just start learning. I think there's no point stopping, and there's so many options
absolutely.
online
Yes,
that
absolutely. But if you
yes.
genuinely want to practice something, adapt to something, improve on your language skills, that is totally done on a self basis. Nobody can teach you to, learn. That's a kind of a self motivation.
And I think the last 4 or 5 years, Government of India has come up with a lot of
Absolutely.
courses, a lot of
Absolutely.
free courses. That's most
Yes,
important.
yes.
These
Absolutely.
sites like NPTEL, SWAM, MOOC, all of these, the courses are all free. So
Absolutely.
anyone and everyone can just log in and just register. And the starting date is now coming. Actually, the NPTEL and MOOC courses are starting from July onwards.
Yes,
So that's
yes.
the best time. Actually, you have asked the question. You can just log on to these sites and just read and learn, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. We have another question from Shalini Motan. She has asked, what are the strategies of language and literature teaching at college level?
Strategies of teaching language and literature at the college level. Yes, you see, teaching a language is always strategizing. So, as I said, we cannot have any absolute, a formula. We cannot have the A plus B whole square formula for language teaching, because it has to be always, it is, as I said, it is need based and contextual. So according to the context and according to the need, you have to understand your students' need, that what do they need and which aspect is to be, exercised upon more. Because you see, when we talk about, when we talk about this programming of the mind, it helps us a lot in understanding the students' level, that how do they adapt to which kind of teaching. Some students, they like that if you encourage them more and more, they will be more happy to listen to you. Some people, they are a little introvert, they don't speak much, but they want a lot of importance to be given to them. So if you can touch upon them, and they can be encouraged to speak up. So as I said, this is not something, which we can just have a kind of a formulated option for it. We have to always think about it. We have to always, the critical thinking skills which we are trying to implement on our students, we have to implement on ourselves. Because we cannot just always say that this is how this, because students are different, the platforms that they use are different, the environment that they come from are different, their experiences are quite different. So how can we say that this is a kind of an absolute term, that this is how we teach and they learn the language? It's a difficult task. And yes, you can have certain ways. As I said, you can group the students, because some students, they perform well when they work in groups. And even if they are introverts, with the help of their students, they can always other students, they can always be encouraged to work better. And making a competitive, of course, competition, I always discourage competition among students, but competition within the self of having a certain target to be reached. Okay. And language labs can be the best things which we can do for the students in order to adapt to this language skills.
Okay. A very interesting person named Kishore Kumar has asked a question. My favorite singer. How can language teachers take up a text, especially novel, in an online class when the attention span of students is very short? A very interesting question, I would say.
Absolutely, absolutely, Kishore Kumar. As your name suggests, as interesting is your name, the interesting is the question. So, very rightly said, it is a difficult task. But you know what you can do is you can the novel that you are teaching, you can first summarize it and give an idea to the students that what is it about, and make it as interesting and creative as you can. You can show certain, you can animate, as we are talking of digital era, you can animate few things, a representation of that, or you can ask your students to read certain extracts from the blurb, and then gradually they will develop an interest when you try to motivate the students to get into a novel. Because of course, I would say it's not as easy, it is easier said than done, because teaching novels in an online platform would be difficult, but try this method, this would really help. Because when you can just give them certain extracts, or summarize the thing, and ask them to read that what is it about, and first give them a brief idea about what is the novel about and why are you learning, what are the things that you can learn from this. So a very that's what I'm saying, the critical thinking abilities has to be inculcated in the facilitators first, and then we can build in the students.
Yes, ma'am. And we have a lot of appreciation coming your
Oh,
way
thank
along
you
with the
so much.
questions. If you see the chat box, we have a lot of thank yous coming in, a lot of comments on how interesting the session was, how
Oh.
useful the session was. So yes, a lot of thank yous and appreciation comments are pouring in, and from the organizers also, ma'am. We thank you so much for such an interesting and relevant session, I would say, which has helped all of us, the faculty as well as the teachers, students who are here today as participants for this session. Thank you so much,
Absolutely.
ma'am.
Thank you so much. And I would fail in my responsibility if I don't thank Dr. Shivani, because she was my contact point. And thank you, Dr. Shivani, for having me here. And thank you, Jayashri. You have been a very amicable host, I must say. So,
Thank you.
and thank you, participants, for being here and having such brilliant questions. And I hope a very bright future for all of you. Thank you so much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, ma'am. Goodbye.
Goodbye.